Hey, everybody, welcome to Old School Wealth Builder with Abraham and Friends. I'm recording an episode today, and I'm going to be joined by some friends. So, joining with me, we have a candid conversation about wealth building in women and the rules of it. This is going to be a pretty interesting podcast, so tune in. We're first joined by Sonora, Melissa, and Mary. Thank you, ladies, for joining me today. This is going to be Old School Finance with Abraham and Friends. I just wanted to start the year off talking about finance because everybody got the New Year's resolution started. Everybody likes to start the goals on the first of the year. And I figured what better way than talking to some women on how to build a foundation. And I said, what would be the first thing when I want to ask a group like this and say, hey, what can we do? Well, let's start with them dreams first. We're just going to kick it all off. And I have my first question was, do you have a wealth building dream based off how you was raised? We all grew up in different parts of the world. We've all had different experiences. So who wants to dive in first?
I can. My wealth building dream based on how I was raised was just not to live the way I was raised, just not to be poor. I didn't have any big extravagant anything. I didn't want to be poor. I didn't want my utilities cut off. I didn't want to not have food. I basically wanted to live like my grandma, who owned her own home, who, could go shopping, who had a clean house, paid her bills, could put money in the offering plate, and always said that I don't have money and always had money. So I didn't have anything big and extravagant. I just wanted to have more and do better than my parents. And then life happened. And as you know, when you can see it, when you have a vision and you get out of the hood, if you will, then life happens and things start happening. And then my dreams changed. They actually became dreams. So that's where I was. And I know we'll get more into it, but now I have bigger dreams for sure.
Well, Sonora, your grandmother, how old was your grandmother when she passed on those little nuggets to you?
So it was a matter of, sometimes the best teaching is a life example. So it wasn't a lot of words. It was the way she lived. And I was about 10 when I started picking up more and more and more, knowing that this is the way I want to be, and this is definitely not. So around 10, I started picking up a lot more, and we started talking more because I spent more time with her. So she passed when she was 92. She was my hero. We were really tight. And I mean, as a matter of fact, I was as tight with her as her own children. So yeah, that was my example. That was my vision. That was my seeing it.
Melissa?
For me, I'm a product of a military family. And so we lived in base housing growing up. And so for me, back then, I didn't know that we didn't have a lot. Just that, him being enlisted, did not know that we did not have a lot. But I knew what I wanted as far as for my future family, that I wanted to own a house. That was different because we lived in base housing. And so just to kind of have that stability is what I really wanted. We really didn't discuss a lot about finances growing up. And so I knew that was going to be something different. But overall, I did not know that we did not have a lot because we always had a roof over our head and food in the refrigerator and on the table. But I knew I wanted better and more than what my parents provided. Not that they couldn't provide, but just a little bit more. I wanted to open up that catalog during Christmas time and circle the toys that I wanted and actually get them. And so that didn't happen. And so I knew that I wanted to be able just to have a better life than what my parents did. And so that's kind of was my goal.
Now your upbringing is going to be a little different. Your upbringing, being in the military, having that background of moving around. And for the audience that don't know, base housing is affordable housing that's free for people that are in the military. They can reside on base. They do have privatized housing now, but being that you grew up on base housing, and like for me, my summers were spent down in Manning, South Carolina, a little real small town. but I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. So when you went back with family, did they look at you like you was the rich family?
That's what they thought, yes. And I'll be honest with you, compared to, one side of the family, we
Mm.
were. We really were. And then I had the other side of the family, and they did well. They were your middle class family. And so one side of the family, you never knew what you were going to get, when you walked in the house, or what you might smell. And then the other side, they really pushed education. So I saw both worlds. But yes, everyone, they automatically assume that we had money. And
I can
again,
date
it
myself.
was just comfortable.
I can't date you young ladies, but I was born in the 70s. That's why that 72 is behind me, but I was born in 1970. And I can remember, eating at my grandparents' house consisted of going out there picking berries out the field, going out there grabbing corn out the field. None of this processed food. My first microwave, I burnt the Pop-Tart because I didn't know how it worked. So the visual that you just gave about living in the military and going back visiting family members, and the perception, and I think from all of us being military affiliated, we've all had that perception through our lives as we go back and visit our family members. Mary, how can you help us with this today?
So for me, I'm the cousin she was going to visit. I grew up in a really small town. And for my family, we had 7 kids. And again, we didn't know we were without, but my mom grew up on a farm. And my grandparents still had that farm until I was in high school. So their thing was the only way to do better is to get an education and get out. So it was always, you have to go to school, you have to go to school, and you have to leave in order to do well. I mean, the examples of, like she said, the people that were doing the middle class, they're African-American, all those people had an education. So it's either you get the education and survive, or you don't. So we didn't know, a lot of things we didn't know that we didn't have, because my grandmother sewed, my mom sewed, we had fresh vegetables, that type of stuff. And then once you leave is when you start to find out, well, wait a minute, maybe I was poor, I just didn't know it, but they made up for it in love and everything else, right? It was not very materialistic like it is now. So all they pushed was hard work and education all the time. Those conversations happened all the time.
I know my grandmother, she was an interesting lady. My grandfather was quiet and stoic. I caught him at that stage of his life. And he used to come home from cutting trees down. We used to call it back in the days a puckwood yard, where they used to go down and cut trees down. And he would put $1 on 3 different donuts, because I had 2 other brothers. We all had our own flavor of donuts. And that $1 was significant to me. And I was like, man, that's a lot of money. Not realizing back then, I don't think we were poor. I think that we were in a situation where we had everything we needed and we didn't know what we was missing. So Sonora, let's go back a little bit and say, what did you think as an adult that you were like, you know what? I was missing this. And I know now that I was missing it, because I can do it for myself now, or I can do it for my kids.
Oh, the simple things. Food. There were times when we had bread and gravy, but no meat. So my grandma was born in 1910. She went through the Depression, the Great Depression. She knew how to stretch a dime. My mom, my dad had 5 kids, and just did a lot of things that was not, not putting the kids first. So there was a lot of drinking, but there may not have been some utilities on at times, things like that. We moved regularly. I can remember moving at least almost every year. So the things, stability, like I think one of you all was talking about stability. Melissa was saying, just to pay the rent, not get evicted, to have utilities on, water, not have to get water from the neighbor's faucet outside. Those things, my children don't know any of that. They have no idea. And sometimes that's a bit of a curse, because they haven't had to go through much, so that the need to appreciate, that's kind of a challenge at times.
One thing is funny. I'll be outside and I'll be like, I'm thirsty, and I'll just turn the hose on. Like it's free flowing water. I turn the hose on. Melissa, you had a different kind of upbringing being in the military. So You know, you can't turn the lights off on base housing. If not, you're gonna turn the whole base off. So we know that to be true. So at least you had lights and water. But is it something that back then you realized, hey, I was missing it? I don't know how far back as you can remember with your parents being in the military and when it realized, like, you know what, we got to check on the 1st and the 15th. Why I'm not getting this?
I'm gonna say, just from being a military child, you notice the difference between the enlisted children and the officer children.
Hmm.
And even though we all went to school together, you could see, you know, I don't remember getting my first pair of Nike tennis shoes until I was in the 11th grade. Other than that, it was, you know, we were Kmart, though, that blue light special, waiting for that to go off. I remember wanting penny loafers and things like that, that I would see some of my other friends have. So we didn't go without. We still did trips, but definitely for me, did I go without anything? Definitely didn't go without anything. I had everything that I needed. For me, it's just a little bit different building those family connections because I really didn't have that part of it. And so for me, it really wasn't the finances. It was really building those family connections. For us, but there you could tell the difference between whose parent was an enlisted and whose parent was an officer. You know, remember not getting a car, or I did get a car at 16, but I didn't get that Mustang 5.0 that my other friend got because her dad was a colonel. Mine was a little hoopty. So you notice those type of differences. And, you know, even though we were all one big melting pot, you didn't see a lot of African-American children with the things that our Caucasian counterparts that they got.
Now, Mary, you grew up in the military because both your brothers in the military. Were they in there before you, or y'all the same time?
No, we all joined together, same year, within 6 months apart, and we all left that town.
Hey, look, I mean, well, okay, there's no difference between y'all.
We were close in age, so it seemed like but we were all
Okay.
close in age.
Okay.
That's the issue. Yeah.
So what do you find is one of the things that you like now that you didn't have back then?
So eating out, right? I mean, it sounds like it's minute, but if we say I didn't go to McDonald's or Burger King or none of that stuff till I was an adult, or it was a special treat because if you wanted a hamburger, my dad was like, there's ground beef in the fridge. Or if you wanted fried chicken, and my mom was a great cook, right? Because they could cook anything. So we weren't allowed to eat out much because it cost a lot of money and there was a lot of kids. But one of the real things that I noticed as an adult is like, it's going to sound, we never had our school supplies on time unless school fell into whatever time my dad had his paycheck, right? So starting school without all your school supplies was embarrassing as a kid, right? And this wasn't my parents' fault. They did the best they could. So when my kids, I feel like I used to go overboard and I'd buy extra stuff for the teachers, for the classroom, in case some other kids didn't have it, because of how I felt going to school that first week or so without having all of the school supplies on the list. So yeah, that bothered me as a kid. I mean, I know better now, but I didn't know then, right? That why can't they buy our school supplies on time? It was because they couldn't afford it, but I didn't know. So yeah.
I know it's as we look back on it now, you know, we've gone through life, we've had our opportunities, and we have kids of our own, and we look back at it and we say what we thought was a situation which was so either dire.
Mm-hmm.
And now if we look at it let's rephrase that. If we look at it through the eyes of our young adult kids or young adult nephews or nieces, we'll put them at about 25. What is one thing you will say, if only you had to walk in my shoe this day, you would truly have a better appreciation for it? We're going to start back with you, Mary. If you had one thing you could just say, you know what? Let me rephrase that again. Social media has painted a picture of just the imagery of such success in 30 seconds. I can be out there on that trip in 30 seconds. I don't know how many people be in the Maldives, but there's a lot of them. I don't know how many people be at the party popping bottles, but it'd be a lot of them. But I've never seen a conversation where they say, hey, you know what? Take a little bit of your paycheck and put it to the side. Help this build this. But it's always a quick way, either crypto or any other method that's in 30 seconds? So we'll put it there. In 30 seconds, what would you share with a 25-year-old that says, hey, this is going to do better for you in the long run?
You don't have to have it right now just because everybody else has it, and or for Instagram or so that stuff's not real. So I just had a conversation with somebody about that. You know, they want instant, like we worked hard. We want to this trip. I want this trip, I plan this trip, whatever. They want to go tomorrow. And they're not worried about, well, when I come back, I can't pay my rent or my car payment. And then you're supposed to feel sorry for them. When it's that instant gratification that they need to get over. That's the problem that I have with all this. Instant gratification. That's not necessarily going to help you in the long term. So just be patient. Pace yourself.
Patience. Ooh, Sonora.
So one of the things that I made my children, when they got a job, save half of their check. And it wasn't an option. And they had to do that until they moved out. Now, mind you, both of my daughters moved out before they graduated high school. They asked and I let them get going. So
You must have met my mama.
they both moved out before, and I will tell you, they haven't been back home. So they're very independent. So one of the things was I made them save half of their money. It was not an option, but the way I sold it was I couldn't save money when I was growing up because I had to pay my parents' bills. You don't have to pay my bills. So they didn't really understand. It definitely is something that they get now. Definitely the younger one. She was always the one that if she went to buy something and she handed you $1 and she wasn't getting change back, she found something else to buy. She had to get change back every time. And of course, you know, if you have two, they're kind of different. So both of my daughters are different, but that was something that I taught them early on, is that, you know, you always got to set something aside.
Now you got two girls, one boy,
And a son.
a son. Now I gotta ask you, what was it between your young man at the house and the young ladies at the house?
What's
when
the
it came
difference?
to money? What was the difference between? Did they have a difference in money, or everybody had the same approach? You got to save or you got to go.
Oh, so with my son, so part of his teenage time, he wasn't with me. But when he was there, he left at 14, came back at 17. But when he was there for my son is a hustler. So he would go and mow yards. He would go shovel snow. He would walk dogs. It didn't matter. He was always earning money, and he was very active and out. The girls, it was, you know, there's a little bit of a gap because he's 5 years older than the next one and 9 years older than the baby. So he was in college when I moved to Florida. So it was a little different with them. But my son is definitely still now. He has 3 jobs. Even he's 33 with a new baby, and he still has 3 jobs. So he was always a go-getter. But he saw more of the poor side of the family because his dad's side it's more like that. So he's always been a hustler.
Melissa?
So for me, definitely echo what Mary said about making sure that, you know, you don't have to have it right now. Saving is a good thing, because just because it's in today, you might find out that it's gone tomorrow. And that's the one thing. I have a 16-year-old. So I see every single trend that comes, and then by tomorrow I'm like, oh, do you want this? And he's like, no, we're not wearing that anymore. And so just really about being patient and not believing everything that you see on social media, you know, just kind of showing him the back. You know, you think that he was on a private jet and he just stood in front of a jet and got a photo op. He really got on a regular airplane and was in coach. And so because I'm dealing with social media right now with him, that is what I show him. Everything that you see doesn't glitter, and it's not completely real. And I really impose saving and investing with him. We taught him how to invest early, and about saving, and because I am in church, we talk about tithing too, and giving that 10%. So that and how important that is for him. So, but he's like Sonora's son. He's been trying to get his own business. He's got a business mind, and he came up with a business. He wanted to wash out garbage cans, and so he asked his grandparents when they said, "What do you want for Christmas?" He said, "A power washer." And I was like, "You can't get a power washer because we have to take out insurance in case you do something." But that's his mindset is, what can I do to make a dollar? And so I'm thankful for that mindset. But I told him now his full-time job is getting good grades.
You know what? If kids would just listen, I would pay a kid for great grades. You can make a living off me off of great grades. I got a nephew, but he's only 6, 7. But if you make good grades, I will pay for him. You could live the world, but social media. Before we move to the next question, I gotta get a social media because I've seen a lot of stuff on social media because I'm out there, and there's 2 trends that I gotta ask you young ladies about. One is when you go dining, is that a split the check moment? Because we're a little older, and the second one is no, we're gonna keep the second one for later. But that first one is when I go out dining with people. Because I'm going out dining with Crystal, and Mary hasn't picked a check up for me yet. I'm still waiting on that. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but is that a requirement? I've never been out with people and be like, okay, when the check came, oh, we're gonna split it. No, just give me my check. That's what I came here for. Just give me my check. Because I'm gonna order what I want to eat. I'm gonna have whatever beverage I want to have. I'm not gonna make the table responsible. But we look at social media. And it says, hey, no, we're gonna, and it's a younger group. I've never seen them have some other people out there and be like, yeah, we're gonna split the check. No. How do y'all feel about seeing that? And how would you explain that to a young person that says, hey, that's not really how life works?
I think it depends. It depends. It depends on who I'm with and the type of friends. I know which friends that I go with that I'm gonna pick up the check because the next time they're going to pick up a check. Matter of fact, me and my brother, one of my brothers, we keep track. You paid last time, I paid this time. We ask no questions because we got each other's back. It just depends on the people. Typically I will assess who I'm going out with. And I will say a lot of people in the military, we tend to pick up each other's checks because that's just how we were raised up in the military. Hey, I got it this time, I got you. Sometimes it shouldn't create havoc. I mean, if the business can do split checks, I would prefer to ask when I got there, right? But I don't want no one responsible, like you said, for my alcohol. I don't expect that. But for some people, it's an uncomfortable situation. That's why I typically bring cash when I'm going out with a group of people, and I can calculate and count. But I don't mind buying people dinner, depending upon who it is.
I'm at the remember that, depending on who it is. Sonora, you seem like you would pay. Can I get a free meal?
Of course. Because if I feed you, it's like I'm feeding Jesus because he said you did it to the least of my little ones. So I'll feed you. But I'm not paying for your alcohol. So that's my other thing too. I don't drink. So I don't drink. I'm not buying, even my kids. When we go out, I'm happy to treat them, but they know the alcohol's on a separate bill. I don't do it. So, but I think the first thing is one, communication, understanding how it's going down before you get yourself in that situation, and 2, being prepared for whatever, so that's how I feel.
Listen, you got a 16-year-old, so you're in the thick of social media.
Yes. And for me, it is, it depends. I'm like Mary. It depends on who I'm going out with. I've had friends that we've gone out for or made a weekend trip. And so we just, decided one person pay for breakfast, another person pay for lunch, and the other person pay for dinner. It just really depends on that relationship. I've got other friends that you're just, you let them know from the very beginning, you got your own, just because they tend to indulge a lot. Now, all of a sudden, they want to order the biggest steak and what have you. So it really depends on the situation, what we're doing. For the most part, everyone, we find out beforehand, and they'll ask it, split the bill, and everybody take care of their own. But it depends.
Mom only when they got free carte blanche to whatever she wants. Mom can order the whole restaurant. I don't care. Let's go. Hey, let's move
That's
on.
right.
I'm trying to stay on time. Here's our next question. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the phrase generational wealth?
Land. That's how I was raised to believe that owning land and passing it on was generational wealth. I don't necessarily believe that now, but that's how I was raised.
I would say on the land part of it, I've seen where people have purchased land and pay taxes on land. So to me, that's a minus sign to building wealth because the land itself is not reproductive. So if we want to go back in time to when our parents were and their grandparents, they actually worked the land. You know,
Right.
when we talked about getting your vegetables off of the land or raising livestock off the land. But what I've seen now, and especially in smaller communities, is where we have people that have land and all they do is pay taxes on it.
Mhm.
So understanding how the land can benefit your family and how it can be productive to actually allow it to be a benefit versus in a minus sign. A friend of mine owns land and he does livestock or he rents it out or he cuts the timber off of it. So for the land part of it, it's interesting because I see a lot of taxpayers on land.
Mhm.
Well, I agree with that to an extent because the land is a thing that appreciates. And so while you're paying tax now, at some point, it's still appreciating and the value you pass that on because the opportunity to gain that land, to purchase that land in the future may not be there. And it's the one thing that we can't create any more of. So initially it is a liability. Again, I think it's smarter to capitalize on the use of the land and to have a return on your investment at the time. But if you never do anything but own it and pay the taxes, there's a good chance if you at some point that your family is if there's a whole thing that is generational wealth. And I don't want to go off on a tangent. I want to answer your question.
No, Sonora, go up
But
on
if we
that
don't
tangent.
educate, if we don't educate our generations, then it's not going to be wealth. So when I think of generational wealth, I think about my children, and my plan for my children was one, no college debt, 2, home ownership, and 3, I wanted to leave them something. As I mature, because I'm now 60, but as I mature, I think about the fact that I don't want to leave them. Leaving them something is one thing, but I want to give them something now. So all my kids are on track to own their own homes. All 3 of my 24-year-old owns her own home. She actually has her own deed. But my 28-year-old is getting ready to move into the house I'm in, and that will be hers. And then my son is going to find what he wants, but he has something set aside. But it doesn't matter if I do all that because I work really hard. I'm very frugal. But if I do all that and I don't educate them, if I don't give them the knowledge and the understanding, and they don't have the discipline to value, protect, and grow their wealth, it is not going to be generational wealth because generational wealth has to withstand time. So
True.
if you work hard to give it and they don't value it and let it go for taxes, it's not generational wealth. So that's the kind of thing that my emphasis is on now is how do you protect that wealth? How do you maintain that? How do you create that discipline so they understand? Do they understand that if you don't get a tax bill, then there's a good chance that somebody else is trying to take your property? Do they understand those things, So that's where I'm at. Do they understand the transfer on death deed? Do they understand the will? Do they understand the importance of trust and the different types of trust and so forth, insurance, things like that? Over.
So Melissa, you got a 16-year-old. You only have one kid?
Just one.
Look, I only got one. She's 32, and I be looking over my shoulder at her sometimes. With one kid at 16, you're still in the thick of it to build that whole infrastructure built around what we see now versus when I remember when we first got email. I remember when the internet first kicked off. We was in Fort Walton Beach in 1992.
Yeah.
And this is the internet. So now, but he's been born into the informational time.
Yes. I tell him, and I also tell my father, I always quote to both of them that, a wise man, or in my case, a woman, leaves up an inheritance for their children's children. I always say that to both my dad, so make sure that he's leaving me something. But I also say it to my son, to just building that foundation. And so for me, generational wealth is just not the things that you leave behind, the land, which is important because that was important to our parents and to our grandparents. Those things were important to them because it was just hard to own those things. Now it's a little bit different, of course. And so, but it's not only the things, but it's the lessons that are learned. How do I teach him to let his money make money for him instead of him just out here working it? For him, I still have to do things very basic. The difference between a savings account and a high yield savings account. What's that give him? Understanding what an emergency fund is supposed to be used for. When he was younger, we got him into, investing into the stocks and things like that, just so he would understand what he is looking at. And so those are the things, just teaching him how to allow his money to make money for him so that whatever I leave him, he's smart with it. Because I'll be honest, I've got family members that were left houses, that the houses are now gone because the taxes, they couldn't afford to pay the taxes, or they got a money inheritance that they now have nothing left to show for it but a bunch of designer bags or shoes. So that I definitely don't want that, but also leaving him the charge that it's not just about you. You're going to have children one day, and it's your responsibility to do what Proverbs says, leaving up an inheritance for your children's children. And so it's really just teaching him for what he has the capacity at 16 to understand, which is a lot because social media is out there and he can go and Google or TikTok, or I think that's what a lot of the TikTok is what they're using to see what I'm talking about. But building that foundation, and again, why is it important for him to pay tithes? So that's what generational wealth is, leaving not only them.
Because we grew up differently. I mean, I knew what I didn't want to do. One time I picked cucumbers once. And that solidified my outside working effort for the rest of my life. I said, nope, not no outside work for me. I'll go be outside, but I didn't want to work outside. So I kind of knew that part. As you've gone through the military and we've traveled the world, we've seen different things. What is one thing that you saw in a different country? I'm rephrased. Did everybody live in a different country at least once?
Yes.
Okay. Going to a different country allows us to have a different perspective. What is one thing that you would take out of that helped you when you saw it and said, hey, these are things I'm going to implement when I get back to the U.S., or I'm going to implement, that you saw that has, wealth building? What did you see?
I know when I was stationed over in England, I just saw how, because the houses were small, that they just didn't have a lot of things. The refrigerators weren't large, so you couldn't put a bunch of food in there, which meant that you didn't waste a lot of food because you didn't have the capacity. The closet space was not large, which meant you shouldn't go out and buy a lot of clothes. And that's what I said I would bring back, which is very simple over there. Life was simple. You didn't worry about, what you wore. It didn't matter. And that was probably good for the first 6 months that I was back in the States. And then I would come back we have to have the biggest house there is and the biggest closet space. But I did do, my son was outside when we were in England. You don't have that here. TV is king and social media is king. So I appreciated the simple life over there. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to keep it up when we moved back to the States.
You, Mary?
I was just writing notes. So you remember when we were in Germany, they would say they're saving to go on holiday, the vacation. So they would save up for however long before they went somewhere, and then they would go as a family or whatever. But they were never just going to say, I'm going to the Bahamas or whatever. I think it's Canary Islands that they used to go to. So they were real about, I'm going to work hard for this specific amount of time, and then I'm really going to enjoy myself. So instead of taking a whole bunch of little mini vacations and that type of stuff, they saved so that they could do something special with their family. So that part, they were always saving for holidays, because I worked with a lot of German women when I was over there. So I thought that was great, which I guess is why, I use a travel agent and I book my trips a year in advance. So I kind of plan them out and try not to go anywhere at the last minute.
I book every trip a year in advance. 11 months a year in advance is my booking technique. Matter of fact, I will leave you on a trip if it's not booked too far out, because I can't do last minute.
Right.
My mom selects a trip for us every year now. And it's like, okay, well, Mom, where you want to go? And then we when I say we, I mean me, send a nice email out to the family. Hey, anybody that wants to join us on the trip, here's what we got. Here's a hotel. Here's what we're doing. Mom, we're going on a cruise this year. She wants to go to Alaska. She wants to go see Alaska. So I was like, okay, we'll do a cruise. I don't understand how that doesn't relate back to I'm gonna show you how we do trip type of person. That way we can always go on a trip, because I can't be paying for one trip to the next trip. So Nora, what would you bring back?
So I was stationed in Turkey, and while it's not necessarily a third world country, in some ways they're pretty poor. I was down at south in Incirlik and near Adana.
I know it well. I was stationed there too.
Yeah. So, in America, we go over there to shop. But I realized that they don't have. And so someone's trash is someone else's treasure. So I promote donating things instead of throwing them away. So my kids, and I'm so ridiculously frugal until, like, even at the end of the year, all those spirals they didn't use, they're throwing them away, and I'm ripping out the written pages and keeping the rest and donating that kind of stuff, going, somebody can use this. So, but my kids are nothing like me. They don't have a single design or nothing. I don't think they own a Nike shoe. I don't think, except for my son. My girls don't care. They would rather go to a thrift shop and so forth. But that was the one thing that I'm very deliberate about, is if there's a use, if I don't throw things away, I don't waste. I would rather donate and give it to someone. And I did that a lot in Turkey, driving loads and loads of stuff off the base. We weren't allowed to do it, but I did it all the time just to go donate it to someone in need.
You just don't seem like that rebel type. Like, okay, I'm just gonna drive this on off the base.
You just don't know.
I was stationed there at the same location, and I noticed that when we used to go shopping in their shops, they would turn the AC on when we came in.
Right.
It wasn't just running.
Mm-hmm.
But I also appreciated the quality of the product. I had a bedroom set made over there. We'll beat any bedroom set made in the United States. The carpeting. If you want a carpet, go to Crystal's house. I know she got some around there somewhere, because I was with her when she was shopping for them. So it's amazing to have that opportunity to see how others live. I think you get a better perspective on how it impacts you when you come back to the States. We have, with Melissa, I can understand, I lived in Germany too, in Europe, and the refrigerators were smaller and they didn't have closets, as we look at our closet today, but it didn't diminish the way they looked or carried themselves. I think that at some point we got caught up in a system and we kind of predicate that same system. And what I mean is we want our kids to have so much that we didn't have, that as parents or as aunts, as uncles, what is an example of, I need you to understand how you got to get this part. Like, I used to drink out of water hose. Now people drink, like my mama got me on this alkaline water here. Don't worry about that, because she wants it. What is something that you look at your kids and you like, you know what? I wish we could stop time and either take you to a place or show you something that gives you a better appreciation of how wealth or how credit is utilized. Mary, you're thinking way too hard over there. You got.
Well, I'm not really sure what you're asking. I'm not really sure what you're asking when you talk about how credit is utilized.
We'll blaze a credit card up in a minute. You remember back in the days where cash was king, but now you can go debit card. You didn't even got to put the number. You can just tap it. Bing. And I'm like, my money's down already. Remember when we didn't have credit cards?
Yeah, and you had to keep track of those checks were going to take 2 weeks to process from overseas and balance in your checkbook.
That was hot check day.
Right now,
We
it's
only had 2 days.
balanced by the ATM. I don't know, or balanced by looking at your phone, kind of thing. So for some people, it makes it hard to budget because they just feel like their budget is, I got money in my account. You're like,
I
because
know
as
some
soon as you
adults
tap
like
that
that.
card, you know, that's a little risky. I don't like that. So
I know some grown people that you'll be like, why don't you understand how much money you got? And they'll be like,
right.
oh, it's in my account. Well, you got it on your phone. You got easy access to it. So what you're telling me, technology didn't make us better investors. Sonora, what you think? You think technology made us better or worse?
So there's a lot of, I got a lot. So first of all, I just want a disclaimer. I was a budget officer. So finance is my thing as far as money goes. And one of the things that I teach my technology, it's there's some bad things. First of all, debit cards. All three of my kids have a debit card, and I ask them why. Why do you have a debit card? And it's my money. I said, so why wouldn't you just have a credit card and pay it off every month? I don't understand the debit card. I don't understand the purpose. First of all, your purchases are secure. You got time to float the money. You are building miles or thank you points or cash back or whatever. Why do you have a debit card? I just had this conversation with my daughter the other day. He pay it off every month, set it up, don't have a debit card. I don't own a debit card. So technology, that easy tap, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You don't even realize what's coming out of your account. So I tell my kids, if you're going to go through a drive-through, don't ever tap, give them cash, because that is what you are allowed to spend on junk like drive-throughs. But if you're just tapping, you don't realize how much money you're just simply wasting on fast food, on Monster drinks, on things like that. So technology is definitely not our friend when it comes to finances. If you took $500 out of your check every month and use that as discretionary funding, I guarantee you that you will not spend it because you'll start seeing that money actually go out.
I'm gonna come back to you, Sonora, because I got a question. Melissa?
I'm gonna say there is some good to it, depending on however. I agree with Sonora about the taking out the cash, and that I do agree with that. But I do see the benefit of technology as far as helping you to to go in and to help you to balance, to see what your monthly spending is on. And that's kind of what I use it for, to go in to see, okay, this month you could cut back here, to actually help you to go in and see. If you look at how many subscriptions people have that they don't even use, whether it's to a membership to a gym that they haven't gone to, chiropractor, whatever, and you just kind of forget about it. That's where technology provided that at the end of the month that you're really going through and looking, you're doing a reconcile of your accounts. So that part of it, I do think there's that benefit of technology, if it's used correctly. But I agree with, to help you understand how much you spend, I agree with the cash on that, because that tap is real easy. But trying to tell that to a 16-year-old is a little difficult, because there's times I'm like, do you even know where your wallet is? So he just doesn't carry cash on him like that.
He carries mom with him. That's really that's the best cash ever. I know Mary, I know Sonora now that y'all about budgeting and money. Here's interesting. So I got habits. I want to know, I'm gonna tell you what my habits are, and I want to know what your habits are, since I know y'all about that money. So what I'll do is, if I go use my debit card, Sonora, I'm a big fan of what you're saying about points and stuff and my credit cards. If my credit card is not working for me, then I don't want it. I want a credit card that pays me points, because I'm gonna spend the money regardless. So if I already know that I'm gonna spend the money, why not get something back in return? So I'm 100% agreement in there. And getting a card that benefits you, whatever type of hotel you like to stay at, whatever type of car you like to rent it from, make sure you get something out of your credit card. The debit card was brought on to emulate the credit card for convenience. So you could be like, oh, I got a credit card now that looks like a debit card, but it doesn't do anything for you. I also zero my account out when I do swipe my card. So when I come home, let's say I got $15.25 left in my account. I will move over to $5.25. I want to zero in that third number right there. And it's just a habit. I buy something, I zero it out, I move it into savings, and I just move it over to my savings account. I also roll up $1 and put in one of my Hobby Lobby things. I just roll $1 up because it's not the money for me, it's the habit. And if I can repeat the habit, I'm gonna always have money. So I'm always have change in here, because when I get change, I got another Hobby Lobby. Hobby Lobby makes some good change receptacles. I just drop my change in there, and I know when it gets to the top, I got about $375. I always drop a change. What habit do you have that goes towards building wealth? Mary, you over there, that scratch paper. So go ahead and hit this one.
You can skip me for now.
What the world?
I'm trying to figure out I'm writing it down. I'm writing it down. I'm overthinking it.
So Nora, this should be this.
So
you already
I was
gave me
just
all
talking
yours.
No, I haven't. Let me just tell you a couple. Can I tell you a couple things?
No, come on.
So a
Tell
couple
me.
things
I'm here.
One of the things I've done is I added my son to a credit card. I'm going to add my daughter to another one, but my son's credit score is over 800. So is my daughter's, my 24-year-old. So they're on credit cards, and they don't have credit cards. I have them, but I spend, a couple thousand a month probably on those. So they're building credit. Again, I go back to, I'm not going to allow you to do these things unless you allow me to educate you and you develop discipline on how to manage your money, because it does me no good to put all this effort into you if you're going to just, be frivolous. The other thing I do is I have a book, and it's 100 envelopes or 100 little pockets that you can put money in. So I gave one to my son and my grandson, my step grandson, to my grandson, and told them that you don't have to put it in every day, but 1 week, put an amount in the front of the book, and the next week put an amount, or the next paycheck, which is they were getting paid a week, in the back of the book. So you're doing a large amount, a small amount, a large amount. You have 52 weeks in a year. It'll take you 2 years to fill it up, but that's realistic. It's not realistic to ask young people to put that much in there every day. And you get to skip 2 weeks a year. So Christmas time, you want to skip and not put anything in there, that's fine. Your birthday, you want to skip and not put anything in there, that's fine. But at the end of 2 years, you've built up this I think it's 5,000 and change. And then that is now a CD. Put it in a CD, and then there you go, start your book all over. So those are some things that I've done. I do that now, but I do it I just had a grandbaby. I didn't know who I was doing it for, but that'll be his. So that's just a couple little things.
Melissa?
Oh, basically the same thing as, as Sonora too. I added my son to my credit card to kind of help him out, just some things that I learned along the way. Savings account, high yield savings account for him. And the biggest thing is just teaching him about those different things. Those are just the hacks for him. For myself, it is that automatic, that habit of just automatically sending that money, maxing out, for me, TSP, because I'm still working. So it's just automatically maxing out that TSP, my IRA, and understanding, still continuing to educate myself on those things. So those are that's the big habit that I have. It's just taking that right off the top, just automatic. I don't need to see it. And then just living without, within that budget that I have, sending one check straight to the bank and, just not even count it as what I need to live off of.
Now, Mary, with all that paper over there, what you got?
No, so I have the same thing, right, with the Max and TSP, and I was born in the 60s, so now I can do this catch-up thing. pretty close to 60. So I'll be right behind you. So that, and then it started off as a joke, right? A friend of mine, she always does these quirky things and she loves to send them to me. So she sends me this adult piggy bank. I think I told you about that, Melissa. You cannot get into it without chainsawing it open, right? So I make it a habit of, I just go withdraw money every pay period in cash, swap it in there. I have no idea how much is in there, and I'm going to open it when I retire. So it holds 1,500 bills. So it depends on which bills you put in there. And so it's just a habit, right? I look at the thing every day and I'm like, oh, I want to put more money in there because I got, I have 4 years left and we'll just see. And like she said, have the automatic things to different accounts that I try not to look at and just leave it there. But the credit card, I have my daughter, she doesn't know on one of my credit cards, like she does not have a card, but that's to help build her credit. And yeah, just the book. I also have the book that I did the book last year, but just some different things too. I'm also just trying to make a habit for my grandchildren. So, but I'm having a lot of fun with the piggy bank because I'm very competitive. So I'm just trying to, an adult piggy bank, who knew? Came off Amazon. She decorated it and everything for me. So I'm like, I have got to beat, she ended up in 2.5 years with like $14,000 in there just from throwing, so. It's a challenge.
I got to go look at that adult piggy bank. I'm gonna look that up after the episode.
You can't get in it. You can't just open it. You have to break it open with a hammer or a chainsaw or something. So if you want to get in it, that means you really want to get in it. So and it's all glittered up. So just different things like that. I think the habits are great because we get in that habit, and then hey, this is something that I feel like I must do. I want to start going to the gym. So yeah, it's an adult piggy bank. Look it up.
Here's I'm gonna look it up because I might want to give me one. Now, you know what? A friend of mine, he was in real estate. He was in Fort Walton Beach, and he ended up buying 10 homes in Fort Walton Beach between Destin and Fort Walton Beach. And we knew each other from 91 to 92. We're stationed in Europe together. And he got there and he said, "Hey, Abraham, you need to buy yourself a townhouse. First of all, I'm broke. Can't buy nothing. And it wasn't my thing. I was a mutual fund stock person. I wasn't a real estate person at that time. And years later pass, and he sells all his real estate and he puts it in CDs. And he explains this process to me. And my questions lies in my statement in that he explained the CD for me. He said, hey, get a CD, but the CD is going to pay you monthly and not annually. So instead of getting a CD that pays you at the end of 18 months or 12 months, get a CD that pays you every month, which you can just divide the rate by the amount, and you know exactly what you're getting each month. And then it sits into what will be the equivalent of a high yield savings account. So the CD was paying me at that time 5.5%, and the high yield savings account that had money from the CD sat in was 2% at the time. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm getting paid twice. Yeah, I'm getting paid for the CD and I'm getting paid for the money sitting there. So because we all got these habits. The first thing I told him, I said, man, this ain't real. Mm-hmm. He showed it to me and I did it. And I was like, why is people not doing this? What have you come across where you've talked to somebody and says, why are people not doing this? This is going to build wealth. And I'll tell you this right here. I made 40 only because I looked at it today because I was doing something. I made $49.75 this last month from that transaction. And I've saved up $17,000 in that account. That same money that I had that I put into that CD was making me $6 a month. My mama was laughing at me. She was in banking. My mom used to be in banking. She said, $6 a month, son? How do you go from 6 to 17? And the information that was given to me, I was like, why are other people not doing this? What have you heard or who have you encountered or had a conversation with and they told you something? You'd be like, wait a minute. Why are other people not doing this to build wealth? I'm gonna go with Melissa first because I see Mary looking at that piece of paper again.
No, I had an easy one. I mean, you'd just be surprised at how many of us government employees, military, and are not maxing out our TSP, especially those of us that are getting closer to the end. They, the tax benefits. I mean, I was excited when they said I could do the catch up. People are doing $200 or whatever, and it's like, why are you not maxing your TSP? At least what they're going to match but you still should be maxing out, especially at, I mean, I know when you're younger, but when you're older, it's not making any sense. It's very frustrating. And I actually sent a little message to the people I work with last week. Hey, just want you guys to know, this is what the new amounts are for 2026. Here's the link on how you update your TSP. Just sharing information. And these conversations, oh, what is this? Some of them, how are you not doing TSP? You've been with the government for 10 years. I was just dumbfounded. But yeah, they don't want to tie their money up so you won't use the TSP or you'll put the bare minimum. I don't understand.
I got a friend that, because he also with the TSP thing is knowing what's in your investment within your TSP. Mm-hmm. He invested for the last 5 years and made more than a friend of mine that invested for the last 15 years.
That's the second part of it. Yes, you got to move it into different things or finding information.
Sonora,
but at a bare minimum, not investing, right? Not investing and not maxing it out. It's a little difficult because they're not thinking about the future. I guess they're just thinking about, hey, I can't afford this right now because I got medical bills, I got insurance or whatever, right? And maybe being a military retiree, we think a little differently, but at the same time, you cannot beat Father Time. So nobody should be looking at the future, and that's what I'm trying to talk to my kids about, making sure that they're putting in their 401k, whatever, because they're not government. But you would be surprised at how many people do not.
No, look, I'm not. I'm not. I talk about it all the time.
The conversations I had, I couldn't, like someone was like, oh, I didn't know this. Yeah. Interesting.
So, since coming out of the budget world, I know you have some very interesting conversations.
Well, this is not about that. This is actually one of the things that I just realized more and more that we need to do more. One is, why don't we challenge our insurance companies? So we don't do a lot of shopping around and switching our car insurances, but if you did, you'd be saving money every year, and you can compare and say, hey, Geico offered me this, USAA, can you match it? And most times they will match it. And it's not just car insurance, it's also homeowners insurance. So that's something I think, and that's big money. We get it and we just stick with it. I know I'm guilty of it, and just stick with it. Well, it's comfortable. I haven't had an accident. We don't shop around. So I think that's a way that we could actually save some really good money and challenge them on that stuff. So.
For me, it is same thing as Mary said, talking to people about their TSP. That really surprises me, and that maxing it out. And for me, I can do catch up also, and so just actually doing catch up with it. But really, for me, it's looking at doing that yearly at the end of the year or beginning of the year, just looking at what your expenses are, because things change as my son is changing and life is changing for me. Maybe we can afford to put a little money over here, or a little more money over here than over here. And that's really the thing that for me, it's really taking a look at the end of the year, beginning of the year, just doing that financial checkup to see where is my money going to, that we can maybe cut some corners on. So that would be my thing that I would share with other people, that they're not looking at their expenses at all.
It's with so much information out there. I tell people, I recommend to people, hey, if you want to learn something about finance, look into a kid's book. And the reason why I tell them a kid's book is because that you find that the language in a book that somebody's trying to sell to you with a lot of jargon in it, it's going to say the same message, but you're not going to get the message, because now you got to look up every fifth word, because people are not utilizing that language in a day-to-day conversation. I was working on this book idea called Investing Around the Barbecue. And it was based off of, you ain't gonna let anybody bring a bad thing to the barbecue. So why would you let somebody give you some bad advice, or you follow some bad advice? With the TSP, it was like, hey, are you looking into the index funds? With your credit card, it's like, hey, you need to look at the statement, because the law was passed during the Obama administration that says this is how long it's going to take you to pay off this credit card. But because it's on your phone, you never see it. I find myself asking people, hey, are you on your computer or your phone? Because the way the phones are set up, you're not going to be able to see a full screen. So we're going to round this out because we're right on time for this last question. What advice would you share, not give, share with your 20-year-old self now that you have life lessons under your belt? Now, I want y'all to remember, I differentiate between give and share because you just want to share it with them. You don't want to give it to them. What would I share? Because some of my kids is 32. My daughter's 32. And as good as I am with advice of finances, my daughter's nothing like me. Her boyfriend is, but my daughter like, Daddy, every 2 years, she'll say, you know what, Daddy, you was right. I'm overdue. I think I'm up on my next 2 years where she says something that you might have explained to me or told me actually works. So that 20-year-old self, also tell me where you were at when you were 20.
So I can, go ahead, Mary.
Mary, you're muted. Your mic is muted.
Austin, Texas, Bergstrom Air Force Base that is now closed. And I had a coworker who was a senior airman and she was investing. I thought I couldn't afford to invest. So what I would say is listen that it doesn't take a lot and just take action, even if it's just a little bit, but listen to the people that are being successful or at least have a plan. I didn't want to listen. I thought it was too young and too poor.
DPP didn't think he was too young and too poor.
They did not. That's another whole conversation. That was a trap.
Melissa?
Yeah.
The same thing as Mary is started investing earlier. I've always had money that was the one thing later, savings account and better information than a savings account that gives you nothing, and really got into investing into an IRA, something like that.
So for me, I would tell my younger self at 20, I hadn't come in the military yet. I was working a full-time job, living by myself, maybe a part-time weekend job as well. But I would tell myself to work hard, to save, to be frugal, but don't forget to live. I have always been frugal, not buying drinks at dinner and so forth. And just didn't waste anything. And then I went to Afghanistan and wasn't sure I was going to make it out. And I decided if I come home, I'm going to go ahead and enjoy a little bit of life. So I tell my kids now, work hard. Well, serve God, work hard, respect everyone. And then I added, have a little fun, live, life is short, enjoy yourself. Because I got into doing so much work until I didn't start really living and enjoying the fruit of my labor, even with my kids, until later on.
I know I was fortunate to meet a gentleman named Jim Arago. You know what? I looked him up a couple of years ago. He took the time out with a friend of mine named Barry Page. And we were in Germany, knew the DPP card personally. And he would share with us how to do a mutual fund. This is back in the day when you had to actually mail the application in and your transactions, everything was through the mail. But he took the time. And that's my hope. We're doing these type of podcasts right here. Take the time to give real examples of what we've done and what we will do. Sonora, with your kids and what you've done for them and how you've laid the foundation. Melissa, with a teenager, Lord help you, but with the teenager, you're laying a foundation through things that you've seen and gone through. Being in the military and being raised is different. Mary, I've known you throughout the years. You got great grandkids out there now, your daughter, your son. Letting them see and hear some of the things that we've done and will do to make this a better life for them. I find sometimes when I hear the thing on the news saying we're the biggest consumers, and I'm like, if we're the biggest consumers, where's the data on us being the biggest wealth builders? And I can't say that I've never seen great examples of wealth building because I'm here with you nice young ladies today, and we're talking about wealth building. And where's that information at? So I like to put that information out there and says, hey, anybody can do it, but you got to put in time and you got to do your own execution. I can give you the information, but you got to execute the information. With that being said, ladies, thank y'all for joining me on Old School Wealth Building.
Thank you.
I wanted to kick the year off, and you've been an exciting bunch, and I had a good time on it. I hope you had a good time with me. With a little technical difficulties, but I'm here. In that, hold on for a second.